stream the Schatz Tanier show with me, Aaron Schatz, editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, and Mike Tanier, as always. And our special guest this week is Brian Knowles to help us break down Week 2 in the NFL. It is September 15th, 2022. For those of you who've been watching our shows at 1 p.m. Eastern every day, you know I've been having some technical problems. We upped my internet upload speeds. So let's hope this works. Otherwise, I'm moving to another room in the house to do the show today. Welcome to the world of working from home. So, hi, guys. Let's talk a little bit first about our sponsor before we get into the Week 2 games. Underdog Fantasy. Come play with us and double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code OUTSIDERS. Now, you know NFL best ball season is over, but Underdog has other user-friendly game formats. First of all, there's NBA best ball if you're a basketball fan.
Yeah.
There's Battle Royale. It's a 6-round best ball style draft with simpler chances to win than traditional daily fantasy sports sites. And there are pick'em games where you can wager on players' chances to go higher or lower than projected stat lines, even in states where traditional prop betting currently is not available, like Massachusetts. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. Join the fun at underdogfantasy.com or download Underdog in your favorite app store. And don't forget to use the promo code OUTSIDERS now to double your first deposit up to $100. All right, I'm going to take the fact that neither of you has responded to mean that you can actually hear me, and we're going to do this show correctly.
Crystal clear, 100% got those week 1 jitters out of the way.
I am ready to rock, and I'm ready to rock with tonight's really big premiere of Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, which is the Los Angeles Chargers at Kansas City, which may be like the best matchup in the NFL right now, especially if you like offense, although we'll see about that. Don't forget, Coral Skipper points out to shout out the Football Outsiders Discord. Yes, if you have not joined the new Football Outsiders Discord server, please do. I would tell you what the URL is, except it's a bunch of scrambled letters and numbers that I don't know. But the link is on our site. And last week, it's in the description of the show. Absolutely, you should check the description of the show. Last week was a ton of fun with the writers and the readers talking about the games live in the Live Audibles channel. It's a lot of fun, the new Discord server. So definitely check it out. Yes, the URL is in the description of the show on YouTube. Want to welcome, by the way, once again, everybody watching live on YouTube and Twitch. Please feel free to ask us questions and make comments while you watch the show. And don't forget to A, like the show, B, subscribe to the show, and C, tell your friends about the show. Tell your friends who like intelligent football conversation that they should tune in every day, weekday, at 1 p.m. Eastern for various Football Outsider shows, because we want as many smart football people commenting and watching our shows as possible. Okay, Chargers and Chiefs. Chiefs -4. This is the number 1 offense of Week 1, Kansas City, against the number 3 defense of Week 1, the Chargers. And by the way, I think in the preseason projections, they were ranked the same. I believe in the preseason projections, the Chiefs were the number 1 offense and the Chargers were the number 3 defense. So you're not going to hear a lot of 1-week DVOA numbers on this show because it's only 1 week. But, there's one. An offense we expected to be really good was really good. A defense we expected to be much improved was much improved.
Yep. And the injury report is slightly terrifying if you're trying to prognosticate this game. We have Keenan Allen out. We have Trent McDuffie, rookie cornerback, who I think played pretty well, the opener, and it's a thin secondary, out on IR. You got Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Chiefs, also out. And they brought in a kicker whose name escapes me right now. So there's
Matt Amendola, used to be with the Jets. Matt Amendola.
Matt Amendola got brought in. So that's a somewhat competent kicker, but not Butker. So as you start to prognosticate the game right off the bat, you have to put all that into play.
Yeah, I think the Keenan Allen loss is the biggest one.
Yes.
I mean, he's their number one receiver. Mike Williams is great, but Mike Williams is, inconsistent from game to game in how they use him, and Keenan Allen is very steady.
And we really like Josh Palmer as a prospect, but we like him as a prospect, and he's not a sure thing yet. I mean, this is a great showcase for him to see if he can live up to kind of expectations, but not there yet.
Yeah, one of the things I was complaining about, especially on rewatch of that game, is Chargers offense. I mean, we know Herbert, we know Eckler, we know Keenan Allen. Especially in the second half of that game, the ball starts going to Trey McKitty, and this ball starts going to Jalen Guyton, and so Sony gets into the game and doing things. And when you get to that next level of guys, it's not the same as the Chiefs. Oh, the next level of guys is Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Isaiah Pacheco is a prospect. So yeah, so that's a problem with Allen out when everybody moves up a line. I think you lose that level of depth you would like for that offense.
My interesting thing about this is, so for those who didn't see the remarkable Arizona-Kansas City game, Arizona blitzed the living hell out of Patrick Mahomes,
How did that go?
which is something you never, ever do. Ever, ever, ever. And they did it anyway. So I went and looked, and I expected to look at last year's numbers and see that the Chargers were smarter than that. They're not necessarily smarter than that. Last year, the Chargers blitzed Mahomes a surprising amount. In the second time these teams played each other, the Chargers blitzed Mahomes 19 times, including that they sent 5 on the Travis Kelce game-winning touchdown in overtime. Oopsie. So now I'm like, are they going to blitz Mahomes in this game? And then Mahomes is going to go kind of nuts? Like, are we really doing that again? Like, I realized part of that, I don't remember who said it. It may have been Chris Brown who said on Twitter that the biggest problem with Arizona's defensive game plan is that it was based on the idea that Isaiah Simmons is Derwyn James, and he's actually not. And in this game, Derwyn James is Derwyn James. I still would not blitz Patrick Mahomes.
No, I would make Mahomes beat me in coverage, and he probably will. But I think you have a better chance for that to happen than trying to get him pressure, because that's what he does. He improvises under pressure. Everything goes perfectly fine when he's under pressure. He looked like an MVP in week 1. He always looks like an MVP, but he looked even more so. Yeah, 5 touchdown passes, 300 yards, no interceptions. That's only been done by 3 other guys in week 1, and all those 3 guys went on to win MVP. It's 84 Marino, it's 2013 Manning, and it's 2019 Jackson. I mean, I could not begin to explain Arizona's game plan. It made no sense.
No, but no. I don't think you're going to see that kind of blitzing, because we saw Bosa and Mack and what they're capable of. So you can rush 4 when they're 2. Did see some I saw some Derwyn James blitzes as a wrinkle. You can probably do some of that stuff along the way, but they're going to. Yeah, the Cardinals don't have that. The Cardinals do not have Bosa and Mack. They've got whoever and whoever.
Right, and the Chargers last year did not have Bosa.
Right.
Last year, the Chargers had Bosa and Nwosu. Yeah. So it was not – you can see where they would blitz a little bit more last year than they will this year. That's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another interesting storyline in this game, I think a lot of people talk about Derwyn James and how well he covers Travis Kelce. I will point out, Travis Kelce had 104 yards in the first game between these teams last year with Derwyn James covering him. Right. The second game, famously, he had a couple of catches, and then James got hurt, and then Kelce went completely ham with 191. But he had a couple of catches early on when people other than Derwyn James were covering him. So Derwyn James is not going to be covering Kelce on every play. And the way that they built the offense around Kelce in the first week, which Derek Klassen pointed out in film room, like, it absolutely, you're going to get plenty of Kelce. I don't think Derwyn James is shutting Kelce down.
And even if he does, we saw that Devontae Adams was able to go off. There is no J.C. Jackson. There's no Tyreek Hill either, but there are a slate of wide receivers, and there's going to be matchup opportunities for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big that was a big difference between the Chiefs and other teams who lost top receivers. The Chiefs have just so many secondary options, and they have a quarterback who's just brilliant at finding the matchups. You could afford to lose a superstar when you have a bunch of solid role players everywhere.
Yeah,
right. They added good role players to replace the role players that they lost too, right? Like they lost Robinson and they lost Pringle, and I can't even remember what team Robinson's on now. He was already cut in the preseason, and then
Ravens. He had a couple
he's
catches.
on the Ravens now.
Yeah.
And we'll be getting to them in a little bit. And they brought in Valdez Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think Sky Moore, people are a little overexcited. But Sky Moore may have been my winner of your preseason overhype. Like they thought of all the guys in Kansas City, people thought Sky Moore was going to be the number one receiver this year. Like, come on.
I mean, he's no George Pickens, who had one target for 3 yards.
Right.
But yeah,
I think Moore also had one catch. And
it was 30-yard catch though, and he's not. Yeah, what you're saying, he's like the number 5 option, the return man.
Right. Yeah, like, get back to me near the end of the year and let's see where he is, but not in the first week of the season. People acted like this second round pick was going to come in and be Randy Moss, for crying out loud. It's not freaking going to happen.
I'm sorry. You're so salty about Sky Moore.
It's going to be interesting to watch the Amazon Prime thing tonight. I am going to say right now, I am not expecting to enjoy Kirk Herbstreit.
No.
And I mean nothing against Kirk, but he just feels like a college guy to me. And the one time he did an NFL game, I wasn't into it.
Okay.
I mean, Al Michaels is the professional of all professionals, but I'm just, I think they could have done better as far as getting an NFL-focused color commentator. No disrespect on Herbstreit, who knows college football very well, but he's always been a college guy, and I just can't see him breaking down film in between plays quite like a Lewis Riddick or a Collinsworth.
Who's the color guy?
Yeah, he's the color guy, Herbstreit.
Oh, gosh.
It's Al Michaels and Herbstreit. That's the partnership.
Okay. Well, I don't pay attention to the commentators anyway. Hang out on the Discord.
We'll have the secondary. They have a secondary commentary with, oh my God, why am I blanking?
Is it Hannah Storm and them? Is it,
yes, Hannah Storm and
I know her.
I know. I'm blanking.
Woman,
covers the NFL for a long time. I have the worst memory, honest to God. But
Brian, help us. We're having senior moments.
You think I'm any younger than you guys? Maybe a little bit, but I have no idea. I
may watch that instead.
Okay.
Even though I can't remember who it is right now.
It's turning into a microaggression. Let's move on. Let's get the pick. This is hard.
Yeah.
We don't mean it in that way. And I'm sorry.
Chiefs, yeah, I'm terrible with I can't remember which NFL guys are partnered together on Sundays either, honestly. Chargers Chargers, the Chiefs are favored by 4 right now. It's moved around a little bit. It was 2.5. It's gone up to 4. It's 4.5 sometimes. It's Joey Sucks asked if it's Carissa Thompson. It's not Carissa Thompson. It's
Andrea Kramer.
That's right. I'm like, it starts with an A, but it's not Angela. It's Andrea Kramer. Yes.
This is horrible.
I know. We seem so sexist, but I mean, you tell me, who is Greg Olson's partner right now on Fox's number 1 team?
Is it Kevin Burkhardt? I don't think it is.
We have no idea.
Kevin Burkhardt. I'm gonna take the field against Kevin Burkhardt for that one.
Right, males or females, we have no idea who's on a lot of these commentary teams. So yeah, Chiefs -4, and the over/under line is 54. How are you guys feeling about this one?
I was happy with the Chiefs when it was -2.5, but it was -2.5. Now it's up to 4. That's a tougher call. I think I'm still going to take the Chiefs because I just don't like betting against the offense we saw last week. And as you said, the Chargers did blitz plenty last year, and that's not a great plan. But I was a lot happier when I was getting the field goal odds than when I was getting +4.
Yeah, Keenan Allen, that helps move that line obviously a little bit, and that has me still leaning Chiefs without Keenan Allen involved. My play for this, you mentioned the over/under 54. I've played the first half under 27. I'm going first half under 27. I believe in the under. I think these teams might be feeling each other out a little bit along the way. And I want to be insulated against, it's a close game in the fourth quarter, and Herbert and Mahomes go ham in the fourth quarter, and they blast, or it goes to overtime, and they blast past the over, kicking field goals at each other, or whatever happens. So get that 27 under. I could clearly see that getting a nice win, and then I'm just going to watch a game.
I like that pick a lot. The new over-under formula, my beta over-under formula, has this as the strongest game of the week as under 54. But I really like the idea of going under in the first half with the idea that there may be more scoring in the second half as the teams have to try harder to win, knowing that it's a close game late. So I really like that under 27 in the first half. It's really tough. The FO plus picks are going with the Chiefs because of Keenan Allen. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of leaning towards what I've seen a number of people say on Twitter, which is any line over 3 with either of these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right. Like these quarterbacks are so good, you don't want to give either of them more than 3 points. So I think I would lean towards Chargers +4, even without Keenan Allen because of that. And that's not meant to be a diss on the Chiefs at all.
Right. I mean, I can see what you're saying. That's why I'm just backing off of it, doing the first half under, and that's all.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Sunday, and let's start with Tampa Bay at New Orleans. This is the most important game in our simulations for the odds of making the Super Bowl. New Orleans goes to the Super Bowl 15% of the time if they win this game and 8% if they lose. Tampa Bay, 26% of the time if they win this game and 15% if they lose. And before I get to talking about Marshawn Lattimore, Mike, go off on Jameis Winston and how awful you think he was in week 1. Go ahead.
He was awful. I think he was. DVOA said he was awful for 3 quarters.
Yes.
For 3 quarters. He was, I forget, they had like -2 yards passing at halftime because the sacks negated the few short passes he threw. And it didn't get much better in the third quarter. And there were all kind of plays. He tried to throw that ball away a couple of times. He threw one going down and it ended up as a fumble. He threw one into double coverage and it kind of glanced off hands. And then the fourth quarter happens. And Saints fans don't want to hear this, but when the Falcons in the fourth quarter, it's like I don't even know what to describe it. We all know it's the Falcons in the fourth quarter. They stopped. And every time I turned around, there was a 25-yard wide open pass play to Olave or Thomas. So it was like Jameis Winston's career in a little like bite-sized container there. And it's hard to take that and predict moving forward. Oh, well, he solved his problems in the fourth quarter, and now we can launch forward because it's about to get a little harder this week.
I will say it was nice to see Michael Thomas out there actually healthy. I mean, we were kind of, we've been waiting for like a year and a half to see if Thomas could actually play an NFL game. And I love that. Yeah, he was good. He was out there. He looked really good, especially in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
I was expecting him to be the injury questions all year, but now it's Winston who is limited in practice on Wednesday with the back stuff that he had to briefly come out of the game for.
Yes. But on that side, that's one thing. But on the other side, the Brazilian mafia has gotten the Tampa Bay's receiver core. And 5 receivers are on the injury report for various levels. And we don't know quite the severity of them. Some of them, like Mike Evans, looked a little more like a veteran day type of thing. But
the only one we know is Godwin. Godwin is not playing this week.
Godwin is not playing, but there's a
Godwin
lot of
not. It would be a real unlikely for Godwin to play, like a 1% chance of him playing. The other guys, I think, are all going to play.
Right. Well, but they aren't listed as DNP, Veteran Day, or Rest Day. They're listed, so it's worth keeping an eye on.
Now, I mean, I should bring up. I wanted to say Marshawn Lattimore's history with Mike Evans, as we all know. New Orleans defense has shut down Tampa Bay over the last 2 years, especially Lattimore. These are Evans's yardages in the last 5 games against New Orleans over the last 2 years. 1 playoff game is included. 2, 64, 3, 48, and 14.
What are those?
And for Mike Evans, the only one of those numbers that's even passable was the game with 64 yards.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So definitely, if Lattimore is shutting Evans down, you're going to need to see Julio Jones looked really refreshed last week. Like the difference between Allen Robinson in week 1 compared to last year and Julio Jones in week 1 compared to last year. Like Julio Jones looked like we could forget last year. Russell Gage is going to need to have a big game. Brashad Perriman's going to need to make a couple of catches. And I think those guys can do it, but they're going to have to do it because Lattimore just has a really great record against Mike Evans.
In the Saints secondary was the one part of the team that looked good pretty much throughout the game against the Falcons. Some of that's because they're playing the Falcons, but they did look very good throughout. The offense, you mentioned the offense struggles. the defense only got I think 3 pressures on the Falcons, which was the most Civ-like offensive line in the league last season.
And they let Patterson run all over them.
Yeah.
It was so much misdirection, so much boot action, every little variety of rollout concept, not shovel passes, but things like that. So anything they could do to get Mariota comfortable. And it worked. It got them to field goal range over and over again. But you're right, the secondary was able to shut down Drake London and whoever else and Kyle Pitts. But it's a very different kind of offense. They're facing pretty much the opposite offense this week.
No, there's a reason why Tampa Bay is Super Bowl favorites in the NFC, right? I mean, like even without Chris Godwin, this team is stacked on both sides of the ball. I mean, the Saints were the number 1 team in week 1. I said I wasn't going to do a lot of week 1 numbers. Right. Number 1 in run DVOA in week 1. A lot of that was Taysom Hill. Tampa Bay historically has a very good run defense over the last couple of years. So Vita Vea is still there, right? So I don't know if the Saints are going to be able to run like that. So it's, the Tampa Bay is a really good overall team.
Tampa Bay was one of only 3 defenses in the NFC to be above average last week, and the other 2 were playing in the monsoon in Chicago. So they're basically the one defense in the NFC who had a terrible week, who came off well in week 1.
By the way, you mentioned Evans and his struggles. I was looking for props. No props right now listed for the Buccaneers receivers because of that injury report. But you might, if you're interested in going under, I'm sure the number will be tempting if they ever get it up there.
Yeah. So the Saints, it's Saints plus 2.5. And then the over under is 44.
Buccaneers.
I am a little bit concerned that the Buccaneers had to settle for so many field goals against the Cowboys team that was kind of running into themselves all night on Sunday.
Yes.
So that leads me more towards the under than predicting a Saints upset or anything. But I have a few concerns considering that they did seem to be stopping themselves at points early on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of going with the don't put too much stock in week 1 idea. Based on what we thought of these teams going into the season, we really liked New Orleans. The fact that they're at home, I would say Saints plus 2.5. They do have this great historical record over the Buccaneers over the last couple of years. As good as the Buccaneers are, we did think the Saints were really good. Obviously, Winston, we thought in the preseason was a lot better than what he certainly looked like for 3 quarters in week 1, but I'm trying not to overestimate the importance of week 1. So I would lean towards the Saints plus 2.5, but I would feel a lot better about it if it was Saints plus 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I also say the over-under formula likes the over 44 in this game. I know you said, Brian, you're worried a little bit about the Bucs settling for so many field goals, but part of it is because this game is indoors.
Mm-hmm. That under's low. That's 44 is low too.
Right. Part of it is the 44 is low. The Bucs offense is still the best in the NFC. I mean, our numbers think that they're the best in the NFC. So our numbers like the over on this game, even without Godwin.
But please check the Winston injury reports before you run to your sports.
Well, I mean, you'll know if Winston is hurt because this line will not be Saints plus 2.5 if Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback.
Taysom.
No, I believe Dennis Allen. I believe Dennis Allen when he said they're not messing around with Taysom anymore.
Okay.
They didn't mean they're not messing around with Taysom Hill as Wildcat quarterback.
Right.
What they meant was they're not messing around with Taysom Hill as starting quarterback. Andy Dalton is the backup. Taysom Hill is there for emergencies and Wildcat. He's not going to play regular quarterback.
One can only hope.
I believe that Dennis Allen.
I believe in Dennis Allen.
They're paying him way too much money for that job, but they were paying him too much money to be backup quarterback too. So that's fine.
There you go.
Miami at Baltimore. That's another 1 p.m. game, I believe.
Yes.
Miami is interesting. I've read a few people, and, thinking about it, having watched Miami and New England, Miami did not look that great.
No.
They had a couple of really big plays and a couple of really big Patriots mistakes, right? But a lot of that game was built on one sack fumble when Trent Brown did not adjust to his left, and that 4th and 7 to Waddle where Kyle Duggar missed a tackle.
Yes.
And otherwise, like Miami, their defense looked better than our projections thought it would be. You know, I don't know how much it's Miami's defense looked better versus the Patriots offense is completely discombobulated. We'll find out more in the next few weeks. But I don't think Miami looked spectacular. And I still think the Ravens are what we thought they were going into the season, which is, when healthy, one of the best teams in the NFL.
The Ravens were interesting. They had only 63 yards on the ground, which is the fewest they've had in any game started by Lamar Jackson. They had the fewest rushing attempts in any Ravens win under Jackson. They've had more games where they've had to throw because they've been down by 20 or whatever. But yeah, it's weird because Jackson looked really good as a passer. Honestly, I mean, that's always the question of Jackson. Can he pass on time? Can he hit outside the numbers? He looked really good last week. I mean, it's against the Jets, so take it with several large heapings of salt, but I found it very interesting that we didn't get just running down the throat like we see with Baltimore so often. Maybe some of that was J.K. Dobbins being out, but that's never stopped them before.
Yeah, they would look very conventional. Yeah. They were kind of in the I formation. They were doing 7-step drop, play action, Lamar in the pocket, throwing deep. It was a rainy day. It was a slick surface. It wasn't the Bears, but it was a slick surface. And Jackson came into his own later in the game. A lot of the good passes you see were a little later. It was flat starting out. So I don't know if they're switching to a more conventional mode, or they said this is the Jets. We don't have to unveil everything for week one, or it's a slick surface or whatever. But yeah, it was a different approach than what we're used to. And yeah, not Latavius Murray. It's Justice Hill and who's the other? Oh, Kenyon Drake.
Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, I didn't see much of him. It was slip and slide for Drake. Drake did not look like he had his footing at all. Hill is a plotter. So, yeah, there wasn't a lot of that on that end. But going back to what you said, Aaron, it was the 4th and 7. It was the splash play. And then late in the game, they were able to control the clock, I think, later in the 4th quarter. And that was probably the most impressive thing about the Dolphins' offense. But the Dolphins' offensive line looked horrible for the first half of that game and really into 3 quarters, I thought.
Yeah, that definitely the guys who've been switched to new positions who aren't Teron Armstead looked like last year when they were not good.
And Armstead's on the injury report this was my favorite. It was rest day /toe.
Well, is that a rest day or a toe, right?
Right.
Just nothing his toe. The rest of him was ready to go, but his toe needed a little rest.
Yeah, his toe needed rest.
I will say this is the game last year where the Dolphins surprised everyone by whipping Miami, and they blitzed the ever-living hell out of Lamar Jackson in that game. And that was the start of everybody blitzed Lamar Jackson all the time.
Right.
So I went to ESPN's database for ESPN Stats and Info, and I looked at the first game of the season. The Jets only blitzed Lamar Jackson 5 times all game. And he was 2 for 4 with a scramble and an Isaiah Likely drop.
I remember.
So I'm like, I don't know how much we learned about Lamar Jackson from that first game, because Miami is going to do something completely different. I'm guessing they're going to blitz and blitz and blitz some more in this game.
Right. And again, I don't know how many opportunities to blitz the Jets had when you're running they're ahead of the sticks a little bit more in that game. And again,
when you're behind 24-7,
right.
The Ravens are running out the clock, how many blitz opportunities you have, but still, like, only 5 is like in the first quarter alone, there should have been more than that.
Yeah.
It'll also be interesting to see Xavier Howard on Bateman. Bateman had 80 yards in that game last year, but that was with Byron Jones covering him, not Howard. And I think that against Miami, the rule is go against everybody but Xavier Howard. Go against Igbenene. I mean, the Patriots threw to Devontae Parker once or something. Like Howard shut him down.
Because he's Devontae Parker, and it's not minicamp anymore. And he's talk about turning into a pumpkin. That's what he does every year. It's hard to tell. I mean, I guess Bateman's the number 1 receiver, but like I said, Robinson had a couple of catches in that game, and I get them confused. Was DuVernay or Proche who had the 2 touchdowns? It was DuVernay.
I think it's Duvernay. Duvernay, because they showed a clip. This was hilarious. There was a clip on Twitter of Calais Campbell saying he has Duvernay on his fantasy bench and didn't start him. Which, I mean, if I was running a fantasy league for an NFL team, I would make it a rule that you can't have teammates on your team. Right. That seems like a conflict of interest, but I guess Calais Campbell has no say over the offense, so it's not really a conflict of interest. Useful Title points out in the chat that he also had Devin Duvernay on his bench. But, I mean, who expected Devin Duvernay to score 2 touchdowns last week? Nobody expected that. No. Ravens minus 3.5 with an over-under of 44.5. What are you thinking about this?
Ravens.
Yeah, I'm with Mike on this one. I think the Ravens looked just so much better than Miami did. I know Miami's going to throw different looks at them and whatnot, but Baltimore looked like one of the top 3 teams in the conference. Miami looked like they took advantage of like the big swings. Absolutely, don't get me wrong, but Baltimore looked like they were creating big swings.
Yeah, I'm going with you guys. That's 3 of us. Part of it is I've got to think that Baltimore spent the offseason figuring out how to deal with the blitz with Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Like they know that's coming with everybody.
Yeah.
And they know it's coming with Miami. And they had to have done something to figure it out. Like it can't be as bad as it was last year. Right. Arizona at Las Vegas. So this is the 4 p.m. So the national game for most of the country is actually going to be Cowboys-Bengals, which looked a lot better last week.
Yes.
That looked like a much better, but a lot of the West Coast is getting Arizona at Las Vegas. And let's be honest, Arizona at Las Vegas is a more important game. And the Cardinals looked like hot garbage in week 1. And the Raiders looked better by score than they did by DVOA. Like DVOA, they threw 3 picks and they had 3 fumbles, which they all recovered themselves. But like DVOA really thought the Chargers outplayed them, but not as much as the Cardinals got outplayed. Like the Cardinals got slaughtered.
I was worried before the season started that the Cardinals had dumpster fire potential. Like there's if all the ifs fell through, that they could be absolutely horrible. And in week 1, all the ifs fell through, and they looked absolutely horrible. They looked horrible strategically, as I already mentioned briefly in the Chiefs section, but also just on offense, they couldn't get anything going. They looked discombobulated from play to play. They couldn't string. The offense didn't. They looked like they were pulling plays out of a hat. It didn't look like they had any kind of philosophy on what the heck they wanted to do. And the few times they did, there were drops, there were blown blocks. It looked like a nightmare. It looked like a rebuilding team, not a team that made the playoffs last year.
And they still botch snaps. I was watching like 4 plays in, there was a botch snap. Like this is still the problem. This is still a problem. Vintage Cliff Kingsbury with that attention to detail. But you're right, out of the hat. Like my impression I got was this is the most horizontal offense I've ever seen. And the new Commanders offense is pretty horizontal, but then Samuel, breaks a tackle and goes on. This is horizontal, and everybody's coming in to hit them. I think they can straighten some of these problems out. I think some of that was, my theory right now is that if you completely rest all of your starters in the preseason, that you're going to get a game like that, or at least the first half like that. And I think they'll start to figure it out. But you're right. They have dumpster fire potential still. And the Raiders, you're right. The Raiders were kind of like what you would think the meme version of the Raiders. Devontae Adams is good. Max Crosby is good. Our offensive line is we're just kind of grabbing guys here who aren't Colton Miller and trying to figure things out. And that's like the rest of our defense.
Yeah, weren't they rotating offensive linemen during a lot of the game, like bringing guys in and out, and other than Colton Miller?
Something like I couldn't make sense of it. And I didn't go back and check it, but wait, that's different dudes getting beaten badly by Khalil Mack.
CCX3 points out the Cardinals are like Schrodinger's franchise, in which they always look like they are both elite and have dumpster fire potential and end up delivering on both.
Yep.
Looks like somebody assembled a Madden team. Like, let's throw a Madden team together. I've heard of that guy. Oh, let's have 6 slot weapons. And then you have to try to put them on the field.
It's fun because doing these early game previews, you end up looking a lot at last year's stats, and you have to remind yourself of the stats that are not likely to carry over. Arizona was number 3 in DVOA last year against number 1 receivers. We have no idea how they did that because they do not have a top cornerback. They will not do that this year, and I am not afraid to throw plenty to Devontae Adams. But if the Raiders pick on Isaiah Simmons the way the Chiefs did, I wonder, will he be covering Waller or will he be covering Renfro?
He should be covering running backs. He should be covering neither of them. He should be covering Foster Moreau. I don't understand this.
I think part of what's going on with Arizona is they spent high draft picks on 2 inside linebackers, neither of whom has yet lived up to the draft position.
Yes.
Simmons and Zayvon Collins.
And they could be one of those organizations where the GM says this guy's going to work, so he's going to work. And Kingsbury says, okay, my check cleared. Go ahead, Steve. I'll throw him out there some more. No problem. I'll go to the beach. Goodbye.
Yeah. I think it's Raiders minus 5.5. I think I kind of would go with Arizona under the idea of don't put too much stock into week 1. But I will say, like, the FO plus picks on this one are like very close to the actual line. Well, it really says just don't bet on this game.
Well, my 12 million star lock of the week, which did not work out last week. Again, I thought that the Patriots were covering. My bad. My lock of the week this week is Cardinals straight up money line. I'm not as worried as I don't put too much stock in week 1. They probably came out like flatter than they could have been, and I'm taking it with the money line because I don't necessarily want the points. I think they're going to win it straight out. So I got it at plus 200. It was plus 215 when I put my notes together. It's currently at plus 200. That's when I played it. So we're keeping track. I'm minus 100. I'm in the hole right now. Plus 200. Cardinals money line. Bank it.
I am worried that the horizontalness you described is not week 1 rust, but it is we don't have DeAndre Hopkins and we have no idea what to do. So with that in mind, I'm taking the Raiders and giving the points on this one. I still sniff absolute disaster for Arizona. I did not like them in preseason. I did not like all the drama that was going on there. And in week 1, pretty much everything we said could go wrong did go wrong. It's not like it was a bunch of random things that no one was expecting. If you look at the almanac, everything we listed as a potential problem was a problem. So I'm going with the Raiders right now and hoping that week 1 wasn't just an aberration for Arizona, but is the beginning of a trend.
I think I'm leaning Cardinals, but because it's 5.5. But I definitely see what you're saying on that. It's Hitchhiker's Pie asks, is there a Call of Duty
Double
2XP
XP
event this weekend?
Is there?
I have no idea. I don't follow the Call of Duty schedule, so
It's
I don't know. But Kyler Murray follows it.
Yeah, it's baked into the line probably. So,
all right, let's go to Sunday night, and oh my God, we're being subjected to Chicago in prime time again. Chicago at Green Bay. Now, this is the shocker. This is the most important game of the week for playoff odds.
Yeah.
Green Bay, 62% with a win, 35% with a loss. Chicago, 58% with a win.
What?
32% with a loss. They would be 2-0. The most important thing is not how good you are, it's how many wins you've banked. And to start 2-0 gives you good play. I mean, if you start 2-0 and the best team in your division starts 0-2, you're in a good place.
And if the Packers drop games to the Vikings and Bears back-to-back, are they the best team in their division? That's the other aspect here. So going a 2-game hole in your division through 2 weeks is a terrible spot to be in.
I get that with the 2-0, but the 1-1, you said even with a loss, they're at 38% or something. 38%?
32.
Chicago's at 32% with a loss.
That is stunning. You walked it through me before, but walk me through it again.
Our projections had Chicago higher than other people expect. In particular, their defense. We had their defense rebounding. I mean, I picked Chicago in the subjective projections. I picked them as my team that was most likely to underperform. So I feel like we had Chicago too high. But the numbers say if they're 1-1, they're at 32% to make the playoffs. And again, don't forget also 7 teams make the playoffs now. That's not 32% to win the division. That's 32% to make the playoffs.
Right. And they've got the Giants coming up. They've got who else they have coming up? Somebody else that's very beatable. So the Texans. Yeah. So even with a loss, they could come in at about 3-1. The Bears could be 3-1 through 4 games.
I am feeling Packer revenge game. I'm feeling Packer. Aaron Rodgers says relax in this game. Like, I feel like the Packers will come out and show us that that don't take week 1 too seriously, just like last year, and that they're still really good, even if we don't quite know exactly who Aaron Rodgers is throwing to. And I don't know whether Alan Lazard will be back, but in fact, let's look up whether Alan
Lazard practiced. Lazard and the tackles practiced. Bakhtiari, Elkin Jenkins, Lazard practiced on Wednesday. So I'm going to – that's pretty big, especially when you're trying to lay 10 points.
Yeah. And we all knew it was going to take a little bit of time for Rodgers and the new receivers to click. More than perhaps any of the other like really elite top quarterbacks, Rodgers really depends on this chemistry with his receivers. He and Adams had this almost like mind reading thing going on there. Whenever problems happened, you throw it to Adams. He knew exactly where it was going to be. He doesn't have that yet with the receivers, and that's what I saw when I watched Green Bay again this week. Rodgers, he looked unusually indecisive. He was unusually delaying things because he just didn't have that. He didn't have that trust yet that Romeo Dobbs is going to be somewhere where he needs him to be. That's just going to take some time. And the Chicago defense is a pretty good defense to get healthy against, I think, all things considered. Especially now you got your tackles back.
If they're not as good as our projections think they are, certainly.
Exactly.
Right. Brian, you watched the Muck Bowl. I mean, is there anything you can take away about the Bears?
Yeah, a little bit. Because the first 3 quarters were the field quality was terrible throughout, but the first 3 quarters weren't under the massive downpour that came in the fourth quarter. Like, I would throw the fourth quarter out entirely. In the first 3 quarters, Justin Fields had a VOA of negative 75% as a passer. I believe he completed like 2 passes. Just for contrast, Trey Lance, who was terrible in the fourth quarter, had a VOA of 2%. So the conditions, Fields was much, much worse in the same conditions than the 49ers offense was. In the fourth quarter, there were some blown coverages, and to his credit, Fields got open, got scrambled in the backfield, avoided pressure, and found those open guys, which is a very good step for him. But he looked terrible for the first half. He did not look improved at all from his rookie season, and that would be terrifying to me if I was a Bears fan right now.
Yeah. The completions I saw in the early game from Fields was like one hopping out of bounds, throwing it like this. It was like very playgroundy stuff, which is fun to watch, but not necessarily, this is a good sign.
It's not predictive. That's the thing. He had his most success early on when everything was disaster, and he was able to freelance a little bit and like get around the edge and just make things up as he was going along. It wasn't predictive. Not something you really can build on. No. Chicago won that game because the Knights committed 12 penalties, and they had to try to do a comeback in middle of Lake Ditka. So I am very, very doubtful that they're going to be able to give Green Bay a real challenge on Sunday night. I'm not really this matchup.
Oh no, that's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
Aaron may have a problem with me.
Yes, Aaron, we may have to rage quit and come back in his other place. It was a good rage quit.
Right, I'm going to let the 2 of you talk. You guys can talk fun Chicago Green Bay props. I'll be right back.
All right.
I got a prop here, Brian, to run past you. Because, well, first of all, what do you think, Brian, of minus 10 laying it on the Packers or taking the Bears in the points?
I don't like laying 10 points. It's just as a general rule because there are so many things that can happen at the end of the game. Like maybe you'll sit on the ball because you have a big lead or whatnot. But I mean, I'm not taking Chicago plus 10. No way in heck. So I will take Green Bay, and unfortunately the 10 points. It's not a line I love because I don't like double-digit lines, but I don't see Chicago covering it.
Let me throw this prop at you then.
All
Let me pull it up here. Okay. Green Bay to win straight up, and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined 200 scrimmage yards. The 2 running backs combined 200 scrimmage yards. So you get their receptions, all that screen game stuff, and any fourth quarter run out the clock stuff, and a straight up win. And here's your money line on that, plus 275.
I like it because I can see the story. I can see that, Rodgers doesn't trust the receivers, so he relies more on screens and little flats to his running backs. I can see that they have a lead late and they're running it. I can see the story that gets there, so the odds are long enough that I think I would take that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. If I play that game and I don't like laying 10 points, I don't like laying 10 points in week 2, et cetera, et cetera. If I take it, I'm going to go for the score a little bit, get the bigger payout along the way, and have a little more fun if the game is out of hand. Sitting there saying, hand off again, and get that kind of action. So That's what I'm leaning for. Again, it would be A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones combining 200 scrimmage yards and a straight-up Packers win. You don't have to worry about that spread. So that's my kind of play.
Yeah, it'd be different if if any of the Packers receivers had looked like they were ready to burst anything out last week, but they didn't.
Yes. All right. Is Aaron anywhere? He is back.
I am back, and hopefully my audio is good.
You are good at the moment.
Your audio is better than it's ever been. You look a little bit like an anime ghost on the screen, but your audio is pristine.
Hi, welcome to my living room.
Looks like a beautiful living room. You got the ceiling fan. You got all that light coming in the back. You're backlit like when my wife tries to take a picture of the kids at the pool. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we're going to have to play around with this if we have to do the shows from here in the future, but we'll see. All right, let's talk a little bit about Monday Night Football before we finish out. Monday Night Football doubleheader. I know which game you'll be watching, Mike. Here's my question for you, Brian. After Minnesota, so it starts with Tennessee Buffalo on ESPN at 7:15, and then Minnesota Philadelphia starts on ABC at 8:30. Will you switch over, or will you stay with Buffalo Tennessee? Assume Buffalo Tennessee is a close game.
The actual answer is I'm going to be flipping between them at the commercial breaks because I'm going to get as much of them as I can. But yeah, I'm going to have Minnesota at Philadelphia as my primary one, the one that I'm going to go on to if they're both playing at the same time. We have them as two of the top teams in the NFC. I really like the matchup, and I want to know more about them because they are two teams that have projected high who haven't necessarily lived up to that in the past. So I want to see as much as I can from them. I think Buffalo is going to handle Tennessee fairly handily. So even if it's still close after the hour or so, I still think going to Minnesota and Philadelphia is going to be the right call if I'm looking for a competitive game throughout.
And bettors clearly think Buffalo is going to handle Tennessee because the fact is -10 is a huge line considering that Tennessee was a playoff, like not just a playoff team, but a number one seed. Like we all know what DVOA says. And we all know that the projections for them got even worse after Harold Landry went out for the season. But -10 just seems like a colossal line, no matter how good Buffalo is. And, Buffalo is the best team in the league.
Well, Buffalo looked great, and Tennessee lost to the Giants, even if they shouldn't have, according to our post-game win expectancy and whatnot. They did lose. That did happen.
Yeah. They had it was a rough game. They were out-physicaled by the Giants. Mm-hmm. They were out-physicaled. I think it was quicker, harder hitting Giants team. A lot of that could be, hey, it's week 1 and we're getting out there and Daboll got us all worked up and like we're all young and hungry or whatever. The outside game with Woods and Burks is what you think it was. It was kind of that bad. Mm-hmm. The pass rush was kind of okay, but you're facing like rookie linemen and linemen I've never heard of, et cetera. And it wasn't really good in crunch time there. So I think the Titans, there's real reason to be skeptical of the Titans. And like you said, the Bills are who we think they are, and they should be able to take care of this game.
Right. And our Checkers Pie points out by our priors, Football Outsiders projections, certainly, but anybody's projections, actually, the Titans are not as good as the Rams, and the Rams were eviscerated by the Bills at home, and this game is in Buffalo.
Yeah. This could be like the Bills could be like on this adrenalized team with a mission thing that you'll sometimes see a team coming out like this is our year and just like going out there and eventually it wears off. But for a couple of weeks, just like bang, bang, bang. And now they got a long rest coming into Monday night, et cetera. Another reason to think that they're going to come in really fresh and really ready if they're trying to prove a point, to prove it to a team that surprised them in a night game last year.
Yeah.
There's a bit of revenge that is going on here. Like the part of the schedule. Oh, we could have beaten the Rams, so we're going to prove that by putting up 1 million points to them. Oh, the Titans beat us last year. We're going to prove that we're better than them by putting up 1 million points on them. You have that early season, like we deserve. We were the real champions last year. We deserve to be there. We're going to show it right here in September, and that's going to wear off by the end of the year. But at the moment, I would not want to play the Bills this week.
I don't want to play the Bills any week, honestly.
No.
And you don't have to watch them because you're going to have the Jalen Hurts experience, and you're going to see, is he going to run the ball 17 times again? Is he going to complete any passes over the middle of the field? Oh, he'll complete a couple of them now, but not as many as you'd want him to. And will the Eagles defense adjust in any way, or will it be good for one half and absolutely terrible for the first and fourth quarters? And we've got the Vikings being the Vikings, just sort of, going out and doing what they've been doing for the last 7 years.
Yeah, what happened to the Eagles defense in week 1? Yeah, it was bad.
Beginning of the game, The Lions came out of the tunnel like Dan Campbell was behind them with a flamethrower. Just they came out there ready to clobber everything in sight. And the Eagles in the first quarter were a mess. Looked like they were playing like with lead in their shoes. Then everything stabilized. And then they stopped rushing Jared Goff. They started sitting back more. I think they had a 2-score lead for a lot of that game. And they sat back. You blitz Jared Goff. That's what you do. You blitz Jared Goff, but they were sitting back and they were allowing gash runs. And they were allowing passes underneath, and they just let the Lions live there. And that's one of the things about this Eagles coaching staff. Sometimes there's this mental brownout, either on offense or defense, where it's where did that game plan come from? And you don't necessarily have an answer to it. They come away with it at the end, but in the middle of that, they're rushing Goff. Goff is rushing passes. You're getting pick sixes. You're getting mistakes along the way. You're getting 3 and outs. And that got the Eagles offense able to do its running and scrambling, and we'll find AJ Brown now and then game plan going.
Yeah. So with the Eagles -2, are we all thinking Eagles?
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles -2. I still believe in our projections, and the offense looked absolutely fantastic against the Lions. I'll assume the defense stuff they will figure out here. I mean, Dan Campbell's team always has been a puncher for the last 2 years. They'll come back in the fourth quarter against anybody. So I'll trust the Eagles.
I trust the Eagles enough. Although remember, every Eagles fan, when there's a Vikings night game, we're anticipating the worst. People remember the Tuesday night football game in the snow, and who was it? Joe Webb. Starting the game and all this other chaos, but I'm trusting the Eagles.
Hitchhiker's Pie asks, has there ever been another team that felt as much like wild card playoff loss or bust as much as these Vikings?
Yes, last year's Vikings.
The
year before Vikings.
Last year's Patriots felt like that, I think.
That was. You're right.
The champions of mediocrity, the Minnesota Vikings.
Look, we got Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. This is
even when they were having their huge wins in the regular season, it was okay, but you're going to go and play Buffalo in the playoffs, and they're going to beat you. So there you go.
Right.
All right, that does it for our live from 2 different places Thursday Schatz and Tanier show. Thank you all for bearing with me and my technical problems. Thank you all for watching the show live and being part of the discussion. And as Useful Title says, I just want to see more Jordan Davis and less Marlon Pulpolotu.
Yep. I'm not sure what that was about either. Maybe they're limiting Davis's snaps early. Whatever. You're right, Useful Title. Good call.
So don't forget to check out Underdog Fantasy and use the football code, the promo code Outsiders to double your first deposit up to $100. Don't forget to check out Football Outsiders live streams every day at 1 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, the film show with Derek Klassen and Cale Clinton. And Mike will be back Monday at 1 o'clock to break down the weekend. I'll be back with Brian Tuesday at 1 o'clock, probably from my living room, to figure out what happened in week 2 of the NFL. And thank you again all for watching, and have a good weekend.
Join us on the Discord.
Tonight, I'll be there.
Discord tonight, folks. Yes, join us on the Discord tonight. Link is below the show.